If one category of technology has dominated the 21st century, it's communication. We can now text, video chat, DM, and share our thoughts on social media like never before. But despite our advancement as a species, there are still darkened corners of reality where a different kind of communication is made. Voices come out of those forbidden places, and sometimes they carry a terrifying message. Here are 10 unexplained messages from ghosts. Number 10 is an old enemy. It's nice to receive a message from an old friend, but what would you do if you received a message from a malevolent ghost which used to terrorize you as a child? That's exactly what happened to a woman named Judy in 2016. When Judy was a child, she had a number of frightening encounters with a vengeful spirit at her family home. After moving away and having a family, Judy believed that ominous episode of her life was behind her. Unfortunately, this was far from the truth. Out of the blue, she began to receive strange voicemail messages. The voice on the phone had a sneering, angry sound, and it was speaking in garbled words. Despite this, Judy recognized the voice as that of the spirit which haunted her as a child. When someone cleaned up the audio recordings, they found a chilling message which simply whispered, "Go to the house." Number 9 is a strange origin. According to one Reddit poster, there is a specific nighttime call which you definitely do not want to receive. The man was woken up at 4:50 a.m. in the morning by his phone ringing. By the time he got to it, a voicemail message had been left. The message sounded like a distorted human voice masked by interference. The recording was extremely creepy, so he wanted to find out where it came from. Luckily, the caller hadn't masked their number. After a little research, he discovered that the number came from an old funeral home in Hawaii, which was no longer operating. Other Reddit users listened to the recording and realized they had received a similar strange call, with some speculating that one of the funeral home's deceased customers was trying to get a message out to the living. Number 8 is a new theory. There are people who believe that poltergeists are not actual ghosts and were never human in the first place. This perspective has been given more credence since a handful of psychics attempted to make contact with one such entity, the Bell Witch. When they did, they discovered that the entity was very strange indeed. The psychics were able to visualize a location attached to the spirit. The spirit was sending messages from there out into the world. However, the location was very bizarre. At first, it appeared to be a tomb, but upon closer inspection, the visions of this place appeared to be more like a piece of technology, like a computer server room. Some have speculated that messages come from some form of ancient artificial intelligence trapped somewhere, but so far, no one has been able to make consistent contact. Number 7 is the Great Silence. Stage theaters are often filled with stories of paranormal encounters, unseen footsteps, phantom apparitions sitting in their favorite seats, and even ghostly voices. For the most part, these events are not about communicating with the living, but in one instance, an actor was contacted by a supernatural entity frustrated with being ignored. One day while the production crew were working backstage, one of the actors was alone out front. As he stood there, he heard a series of thumps and bangs, as though someone was hitting their fists off the walls. Suddenly, a man's voice appeared out of thin air to the actor and shouted, "Can't you hear me?" After this, other members of the cast and crew heard footsteps and strange noises around the theater. The spirit was trying to communicate, but unfortunately, only its frustration was heard loud and clear. Number 6 is Say That Again. If you have a phone, that means that you can record audio, and this has resulted in many people picking up bizarre voices which seem disembodied and almost human. There are hundreds of thousands of such recordings, and often the messages left are short phrases seemingly provided from the spirit world to convey meaning. However, in some situations, the alleged spirits repeat themselves over and over again, as though they're not being understood. One paranormal investigator from Buckinghamshire, England, has recorded the same message in a variety of different locations. What's more, the message is being spoken by different voices. No one knows what the spirits are referring to, but they seem intent on telling the researcher something important. The message is clear and simple and says, "Never again." But what that means exactly remains a mystery. Number 5 is a family reunion. We all have to experience losing someone we love at some point in our lives, and when it does happen, we search for meaning in the hopes that they are still out there somewhere. But while we may pray and hope that there's something after death, we don't expect a direct answer. In 2016, a Redditor received an eerie answer to her prayers, captured forever in the form of a voicemail message. The caller's number didn't make any sense. It was a series of zeros and no other digits. When the woman then listened to the recording, she was traumatized. A familiar voice came through. It was the voice of her father. He kept repeating the words, "This is Dad," in the message, along with "I was trying to contact you." While the daughter was happy to receive the message, it still unnerved her to think that she'd been contacted by the ghost of her father. Number 4 is the Slumber Party. Many years ago, a girl named Abby was attending a slumber party at her friend's home. The group of girls were in the 8th grade at the time, and while they were having fun, they decided to try to scare each other. To do this, one of the girls suggested going into the basement and carrying out a seance. While standing in the basement with the lights off, they discussed who they should summon. One of the girls then said Jack the Ripper. At this suggestion, Abby felt a shiver. She whispered, "No, we shouldn't summon something evil." In response, the disembodied voice of a grown man spoke loudly from the darkness in agreement. The voice said, "That's right." The girls ran from the basement, but there was no one else there. It seemed that something supernatural was listening to them and had given them a profound, ominous warning. Number 3 is a different kind of message. There are many ways to communicate with each other. We can write or speak our words or even use our body language. But since ghosts have no body of their own, they sometimes have to use other, more sinister means. In one such instance, an online poster told their frightening story of being contacted by the dead. The house she used to live in was old and had a creepy atmosphere. She and her roommate often felt as though something else lived in the house. One night, the girl saw a patch of water on the floor in the house, and then found her roommate in a frightened state in the other room. He had been walking through a part of the house carrying a glass of water and felt something invisible push him. When they returned to the patch of water, it had changed shape into a perfect human hand. The ghost's message was loud and clear: "This is my house." Number 2 is an unhealthy fixation. For most paranormal investigators, receiving messages from a ghost would be the holy grail of paranormal research. However, it all depends on the kind of messages you're receiving. Posting to the True Ghost Stories subreddit, one user was concerned that there was an active spirit at their home. The activity began with unexplained rattling noises coming from the bathroom, along with the door slamming shut on its own. Soon the spirit began communicating directly. Every time the Redditor was in the shower, he would come out to see strange messages written on his mirror in steam. The messages included his name and a love heart. At first, he thought the spirit was in love with him, but over time he began to worry that it wanted to consume him completely. Now, he rarely sleeps at night and listens out for rattling and footsteps in his bathroom. And number 1 is You Rang. One popular way to receive messages from ghosts is through the use of a Ouija board. Also known as a spirit board, these communication devices are considered a trivial game by some, and by others a direct way to communicate with demonic forces. In one reported incident, a high school student and his friends decided to use a Ouija board to see if anything would happen. Soon, they began to receive messages from a ghost calling itself Fred. Shortly after, one of the students received a message with a number which wasn't familiar to them. When they called the number, a man answered by simply saying, "This is Fred." They soon found out that the man was very much alive, but worried for him as the Ouija board had mentioned that Fred died in a car accident. No one knows if the message was a warning or, at worst, a threat from beyond the grave. Thank you so much for watching and for subscribing to my channel, and a very special thank you to all of my channel members, especially the names you see on your screen right now. All of you help keep my channel going. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.